If we were to say for just a moment, and again, I know this is a contentious issue, but if we were to say for a moment that this world was created and there is a creator, that means creating is mimicking God. It's mimicking the creator. And if we're mimicking the creator, then creativity must be divine. The starving artist syndrome or starving artist stereotype is something I touch on in the introductory paragraph of The Renegade Musician. It's really important to remember the value of creativity. There's a value to it. It is something tangible. It's not necessarily something everyone can do off the cuff. We can all develop ourselves to become more creative. We can all work at a specific craft or learn a specific art form. We all have the capacity to do that, but we're all creative to varying degrees. And creativity is devalued to the point where in the school system and the education system, it's not prioritized so much in the funding anymore. In fact, the first thing to go nowadays is arts programs. And we're kind of past the point, to be honest. There's just so little art in schools anymore, including music. And the irony in all that is it's crucial to a child's development. It helps them develop problem-solving skills that they'll be able to use later in life. And let's face it, things do come up. People go through financial difficulties. People go through issues with everything imaginable, with their car breaking down or things not going well with their spouse or significant other. And having those problem-solving skills, rather than leaning on what the movies and the mainstream media tell you to do, which is rob a bank, basically, coming up with other solutions is just an incredibly valuable thing. And so creativity needs to be taught. One thing it has also been shown to do is help people develop their social skills. And that may not be true in every situation, but you certainly have a way to relate to other artists when they do something and they bring their excellence to it and you're doing art. And you start to notice when there's other amazing artists around you. And so you're able to relate and communicate. I think it's more than fair to say that creativity in the workplace is also valued. I understand, like, I have now spent almost a year in big tech. So I understand that creativity is sometimes not valued that much because the tasks that we're doing may require different people or perspectives of different people. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to follow the same instructions and come to some of the same conclusions that a reviewer or an evaluator or an auditor can later go in and say, yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for this row in the spreadsheet. But there are so many situations where in business, you need creative solutions. You need to innovate. You need to come up with ideas, and merely asking Google or AI isn't necessarily going to present you with breakthrough ideas because that's more of a lagging indicator than a leading indicator. In other words, it might have data from the yesteryear, but it may not have up-to-date current data. So leading indicator is impossible. You just can't find that with Google or AI. When you need to come up with innovative solutions, you need the human mind and you need to be able to think creatively to make that happen. Another point we could certainly argue about is the divinity in creativity. To create is divine. Like, some people would certainly agree with that statement, but I think a lot of artists report, myself included, that when we go and engage in our craft, it's not as though all this information is like somehow stored away in our subconscious mind and we're pulling it out and putting it on paper, whether it's song lyrics or music, or in my case, a lot of writing. It's almost like I'm channeling something that I'm not totally sure what it is. I define it as the divine. So I'm thinking God, universe, spirit, Gus. But if we were to say for just a moment, and again, I know this is a contentious issue, but if we were to say for a moment that this world was created and there is a creator, that means creating is mimicking God. It's mimicking the creator. And if we're mimicking the creator, then creativity must be divine. This section of the book also covers why artists starve. And to be honest, most of it is pretty obvious. I don't think there's any major insights to bring to the table here, but things like complacency, like, well, things like that, great, but they're not so bad, and it's weird. Like, it's human nature for us to wait until things get so bad before we demand change. So it's that question of like, how long are you willing to wait before the nail sticking out of the plank hurts enough that you get up and walk away and go somewhere else? And unwillingness to act is a big one, like lack of leadership. That's why I hammer home the idea of leadership within the Renegade musician. We live in an age where if you don't take charge, virtually no one else does. So you're sitting there at home waiting, going like, I wish someone would call. Not even necessarily for a gig, but just like go out and hang out and have some fun. And so you're sitting there waiting and nothing comes. And it's like, oh, actually, it's on me. Like if I think of myself as a leader proper, then it's not on them. I shouldn't be waiting for them to book things, make things happen, to make social events, to have gigs organized. It's on me. Like I got to take action. So it's not universally true of every artist, but many are lazily proactive. They do things that help their career. They book gigs or tours. To be honest, though, like many artists want to rely as much as possible on a team, and many artists aren't ready for that team, but they would love to rely on a booking agent and a manager and all that kind of stuff, not have to do all that kind of work themselves. So there's that lazily ambitious or lazily proactive element to being an artist, and that doesn't really serve a renegade musician. The last thing I will say about this section is the whole notion of giving a mile when others come to take an inch, or giving an inch when others come to take a mile. Like you let people in, and in this case, we could say politicians or maybe decision makers. You let them in, even just a little bit of your territory, and suddenly you find they've constructed an entirely new set of principles or building, or we can take the metaphor wherever we want to go, but they've constructed something there that was never intended and you didn't really give them permission to. So they came to take a mile, you gave an inch, and they took the mile anyway. So that's another thing that doesn't really serve a renegade. And you have to draw a line and say, like, if you cross this boundary, that doesn't work for me. If it means not getting paid, if it means not being valued, if it means that I can't live as an artist and do what I love to do, that doesn't work for me. And that's where you got to start drawing some lines.